Thanks. So do you want to share your screen and show that, or shall I do it on my side?
I can.
All right.
Entire screen.
So if it's doing it at one end, doesn't it do it at both ends? Meaning when we serialize from the map Ginger, doesn't it do it both sides? So it works anyway.
Well, the problem only comes from normally the both YAML file should be equals, right?
Right.
When you use aliases, or if you expand the aliases, it should be the same for YAML.
Yes.
But the problem is, I'm not in the good branch. Okay. I was doing some tests. So the problems come from YAML self-load.
Yes.
It doesn't authorize the use of aliases.
Right. Can we get a side-by-side so that anyone else watching this afterwards understands what we're talking about?
Yeah.
So I understand what you're saying, but it'd be better just to see it visibly so we can show what's happening.
Okay, so let's say. So this is the output produced by the salt serializer. This is the content of the map .ginger variable called okay, let's see. Okay, I just added the map data. Okay, and we have the salt serializer. And we just import the Java from map.ginger and process it through the Ginger serializer, the YAML serializer. So this produces that kind of file where commands refer. This is ID 001, and it's used. Let me here.
There it is. There, yeah, in the middle.
Yeah, and in several places, if I remember, because there is several different. Oh no, actually there is only one.
But it finds that duplicate block of YAML, and so it basically sets up a node anchor. So the first one, and then the second one is using. Yeah. So the serializer is automatically doing that, even though we haven't intended for that to happen.
Yeah. So I make a test. I made a test. If I'm using only load instead of safe load, it's working fine.
Okay, and so it basically does the same thing, yeah?
Yeah.
Right. That's a minor change. We could do that.
Well, yes, if you want. I don't know exactly the difference between safe load and load. If I remember that load accepts more Ruby classes, it converts more things to YAML or vice versa.
Yeah, it would be interesting. Can you quickly go to salt stack salt, the actual main repo, and we just have a look at the serializer, what it's actually doing? I think it's only using load, which is why we may be ending up with this problem. So just the standard salt repo.
For?
Just in GitHub at the top, just type in salt stack /salt, where it says query Java in the URL bar. The URL bar. Yeah.
Salt stack
/salt.
Okay.
Yep. And I think it's under serializers. So if you could just search. Oh, yeah, you know where it is. Yeah.
Oh.
That's good. If you know where you're going, that's fine.
Lasers and serializers YAML.
Yeah, that one there. That's the one. Now, if you just search for load in there, it may just be load without safe load. If you just search in the file for load, I can't see it yet.
Load.
38 matches. Great. We're going to take a while finding this. There it is. YAML.load.
Yeah. But this is the Python one.
This is deserialize. So if you just go a bit further down and look under serialize in the next definition, just below, it's right there below.
Serialize, it just dump.
Okay, so that's dump. But when it's actually deserializing it, it's deserializing it with dot load. So we should do the same thing when we're verifying, which is why we're ending up with the problem, because the YAML.load here is compressing it into those node anchors instead. So if we do the same thing at our verification side, as you've tested, it works fine.
Yes, on the Ruby side, actually.
Yeah, on the Ruby side, yeah. So it's using the same YAML. So just make that load and it should work.
Yeah,
as
because
expected.
the output file here, okay, this one, the YAML inspect resource, correctly load, because I think it's doing a simple load instead of a safe load.
Probably. I haven't checked. That's in the inspect side. We can check that as well. I wouldn't be surprised to find it's doing the same thing.
Because actually the file I have here was produced by the java._map data.
Yep.
Okay. So this one is parsing correctly, and this one is not. This is the reference file, and this is the to be tested files. And this one is doing the work because the default inspect use the YAML.load, probably.
They do as well, probably, yeah. We could look in the code, but I mean, either way, we just the idea is just to load the file from YAML, and if load is the one that matches up with the other data that's produced, so that we can do the comparison, both should be doing the same thing. So in this case, load is the right answer.
Yeah. I found some possible options to pass to safe load with aliases.:true, but it's not working. The version of Ruby I am testing against doesn't work.
Right.
Some kind of compatibility or something like that. In the Ruby side, I found some legacy options. It's quite complicated for me. So safe load is not the way to go.
No, that's fine. That's fine. If we haven't got like I said, I think at the time when we were making this file, we just took the recommended option, which is to use safe load. But load was always there, and I did actually see it in the code. So really, I should have just clicked at that point and thought, right, let's just use load on this side. But I didn't adjust it. So I'm fine with going to load because it did cross my mind in the past.
Okay.
Yep. So that's a good change, I think, just to make sure the verifier keeps working as we need it to.
So that's the only problem I have for now.
Fine. I think that's easily solvable, and we're good with that solution, I think.
Okay.
Okay. So that was the main option there. I think David's joined. David, was there any particular issues you wanted covered? Not yet. Okay, what I'll do is I will start looking over some stuff that I've been doing, just giving a bit of feedback if I can remember how to share my screen.
Sorry, I was muted. I was talking then.
And we were ignoring you. Yeah, no, go on.
Yeah, just what we discussed privately, briefly. I'd just like to go back over the kind of the setup of the new GitLab CI.
Yeah.
Because I realized once I started a PR for the first time in the new setup, I actually didn't really understand how it works or how I could replicate it myself for my own forks.
Yep. Okay. Let's have
because with Travis, it seemed to be very easy in the sense that you just enabled the integration and then turned on a repo or not. But I think this is more complicated.
Whoops. Yeah, it is complicated for users to make their own forks because they have to actually create the repos themselves in GitLab in order
Yeah.
in order to do the testing. I'm just trying to, let's see, where should we start from here? I'm wondering where to approach this from. So let's start from where I said is whenever a new PR is started directly and it's coming through our repo, so even anyone starts a new PR, we automatically get, via this bot, we get the push through to GitLab and we get our GitLab runs taking place. Now, the thought pattern I had, because of course this is a disadvantage, not having that automatic integration like we got with Travis. I noticed in over these years that very few people pay attention to Travis on their own side, whether they have it or they don't have it. They're not really following. They don't really follow even the one on our side, let alone the one that are in their own forks. So people were pushing through PRs anyway and letting our CI deal with it. So I think for the vast majority of people, it probably won't make a difference. And for the few people who are interested in it, we could have a set of instructions that help you create the fork the way it needs to be created in GitLab. So it's doing the mirroring of your fork of the GitLab repo. So take any repo, it doesn't really matter. So if we look at...
but just before we move on, I mean, well, the one thing that jumped out of me is there's this cockbot, which, what does that do exactly?
What it is, I was searching around. Now it's going to be tough for me to find the issue. I did have it actually here. It might be in my history here. Let's see, GitLab. What was this whole concept? It was something to do with... Oh, I won't find it like this. There's no way I'm going to find it. What it is there was an issue on the GitLab issue tracker, which was saying that the integration between the GitLab CI and GitHub wasn't working for PRs. So when I went on that thread and I looked down it, there were two options available, and one was with these guys. So they've got their own bot that they're using. The people behind this, it's a different project altogether. It's nothing to do with SaltStack, but they've made this bot themselves that they're running, which allows picking up when someone started a new PR in GitHub, and it pushes it through to GitLab for you. Because that's not currently available in GitLab, because there are certain security considerations that are there, and GitLab's working on it, and they are planning to do something at some point, and provide that as part of their service, so that we wouldn't have to use this bot. But in the meantime, this bot, the only thing it does, it pushes a PR from the GitHub side to GitLab to be tested, and the way it does that, it actually adds another commit. How can we dig down into this a little bit? I've done all this a while ago, but it's there. Okay, you'll see it here. So for example, this one over here has 7 commits, and you can see the various commit messages. So one of them, I think the last one there is merge branch. And what you'll see down here is you can see all 7, but you'll see that GitLab adds its own one Cockbot adds its own one as well. So let's see, where is it? My eyes are not there. Okay, there's the last one. So it's actually going reverse chronologically. So here's the last one that's been pushed into that PR. And then there's another commit here, which I had to rewrite the message that the bot adds onto it, so that it's still semantic release. So it doesn't basically fail on the commit lint, but it's just pushing it through for us so that we get a run then in the GitLab side. But otherwise, everything else that's done is done directly through GitHub and GitLab. It's not going via the bot.
Right.
Now, that's not the clearest explanation, but I'm trying, like, what parts of this architectural setup do we need to... And there's one side, which is how's it all being pushed through. There's the other side, which is how do people set things up. I've got a simple script, but it's full of my passwords and stuff at the moment, so I can't share it on the screen. All it needs to be, I just need to remove that so that we can let people just put those in via environment variables or whatever. And it can be run on any repo, where it will make sure that your fork is then forked into... If I show you my side, for example. So let's go to... Right, here's the Let's Encrypt formula. And then I've obviously got my fork. How do I get to it quickly? I think I get to it like that. I didn't want to lose the other one. So I've got my fork over here, and the bot runs on this fork. It doesn't run on the main salt stack formulas repo.
Mhm.
That's got its own version in GitLab, but then I've got mine
Yeah,
here.
okay, right, yeah.
And it makes a fork of this, a mirrored fork of this into, am I there? Let's see. I think it's simply, I didn't need to leave that at the end though. But there it is there. So it's done, the script makes sure it runs with the right options. So it sets it up as a mirror automatically. So it's mirrored from here. So whatever now I push from my end as I'm working, as I usually would, and I'd test out branches in my fork of the Let's Encrypt formula, would get pushed through to here automatically. And then the pipeline here will pick it up. So some of the last testing I've done here, you'll be able to see. Looking good there, of course, lots of failures, but it pushes it through here and then it's picked up over here and runs in the pipeline within that 5-minute window that I mentioned that there is for syncing between GitHub and GitLab sometimes.
Yeah.
So it goes from my fork into my fork over this side, which then runs the pipeline. And just need that script to be tidied up so that anyone who is interested, it will be done automatically for them as long as they provide the keys that are necessary. What those keys called? The ones that are the GitHub token, tokens basically.
Tokens. Yeah.
Yeah, the access tokens on both sides, and it will do everything for you automatically and set you up. But I was thinking, since all this has been set up already on the salt stack formula side, getting people to push through PRs now and just do it through that already just seems so much simpler anyway. It's not really a big problem if it's done through PRs. I guess people want to do their own testing as well, though.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it's a problem, but there's a couple of things. One, yeah, I mean, it's an extra step to have to create a PR just to run the test. But another thing is, there's no point all of this just being kind of in your head and nobody else understanding it.
Oh no, that's definite. Again, as we spoke, when we were discussing Slack, that's for sure. It does need to go into some form of documentation so that whatever's there can be maintained by others over time.
Yeah,
of course, there's no doubt about that. That needs to happen.
Personally, yeah, I'm just interested in how this stuff works and if there's any improvements to be made or whatever.
Definitely. Just again documenting and getting that documents. I had a quick look at Antora again because I'm thinking about how to put it in place effectively, and it's just going to take some time. That's really the issue. It's just about time and trying to clear through all the various things that are taking place. But is there any questions, Daniel? Any particular things that concern you or questions you have about this setup with GitLab?
No, personally, I'm doing tests on my own side. So I'm not using tests in my branch. I mean, I just having a double validation when I'm doing the PR.
Yes. So you're doing it in your own local side.
Yeah, to test all the kitchen platforms.
Yeah.
So I have a virtual machine and I'm running kitchen verify on it.
Yeah. And I do a fair bit of that myself as well. But when I just want to test all the platforms at the same time, especially when it's leading up to the point where it's going to get merged, I like to see what it's going to actually do in GitLab because I find sometimes there's a slight difference. Just normally because, I mean, do you, for example, when you're using it locally, do you destroy the Docker, each platform that's there, that each image you've downloaded, do you destroy it each time and pull it up again?
Yes.
Each time?
Oh, no, not each time. When I'm doing a development, I'm doing verify and the Docker files, the Docker images are downloaded and I'm cleaning everything just before the pull request.
Okay, so you are going through that cleaning process cleaning, because otherwise, you know, I was finding sometimes I had slightly older images, maybe 2 or 3 months old, and they were performing differently to the latest images. You know, there's been all sorts of things that, you know, have been uncovered in the last, you know, few weeks, where certain newer platforms that are constantly changing, you know, they're developing issues and problems that I wouldn't have been aware of if I was only testing locally without cleaning my environment first. But if you're doing that, that's good.
I'm doing, actually, when I'm developing a pull request, I don't take really attention to that part. But my virtual machine have 100 gigabytes of disk. And when I'm doing tests on all the platform, it can fill up to 60 gigabytes. You know, I can quickly fill up everything with all the platforms.
Yeah.
So during the development process, I don't take too much attention to that. But just before doing a pull request, I'm cleaning everything and doing a verify on everything fresh.
Yep, got you. Yeah. And that's what needs to be done if you're testing locally. Otherwise, it won't necessarily match up with what's happening, you know, with the very latest platforms and stuff that are, or the very latest updates to the platforms. So, okay, that's great. But again, for everyone else, that might not be something that's easy to do. I remember first when I was messing with kitchen testing, just getting one taking place was a hard time. You know, now that I'm familiar with it, it's very easy to do, and I can do however many, but I don't know how viable that is for a lot of people if they've got the time to set up the Ruby environments and everything else to make sure that all happens the way it needs to. So again, having it available as a service through GitLab or wherever is important. It's just working out how to make it easy for others to use that as well. Right. And is there any other particular topics that we need to cover, or I can go through some of the stuff that's been happening for the last couple of weeks from my side?
It's okay for me.
Yeah, I'm easy.
All right. So one of the main things I've been trying to do over the last couple of weeks is start pushing out the latest pre-salted images to all formulas. And it's been quite complicated, to be honest, because a lot of the formulas were still running, you know, back to 2017.7. And I think the last time they'd been updated, some of them was 2019, as in terms of the images that we were using there. So we were shifting all the way across to, if I take this one, for example, where am I? Not this one. If I go over here, this one's one that's using all of the various platforms. So you see here, actually you don't see too well there. Let's try this. You might see better. So a lot of the newest, actually these are all master, because that's actually what we already discussed in the past, but you'll see the main matrix. Let's go to the actual commit. I'll make it a bit easier. Except I don't like this side. Not very easy to follow. Let's go to view file. Okay, so don't worry about the commented out. We're talking about the actual versions of Salt. So we've got the block that has the Tiamat pre-salted images, of course, master, which is all of these. And we have version 3002.2, which is still, obviously that's the latest version at the moment, 3001.4. And the latest version, the oldest version we're supporting is 3000.6. So what I found is a lot of the formulas weren't even using 3000 at all. They were still using 2019 and below. So our matrices need to be updated quickly and regularly if we're going to benefit from these pre-salted images that Salt's moving quite rapidly. That's the point. So the versions are moving, and the versions that are supported are moving, you know, every few months. So I think it's every 4 or so months a new release comes out, and one of the older releases maybe dropped off at that time, or maybe it's 8 months. I can't remember the exact figure, but there is consistent change. And so what I tried to work on instead was a way of, so this is in my experience of maintaining this now. We discussed in the past about which should we use as our main version of Salt we're testing. And there were strong arguments. And in an ideal world, the strongest argument is to use the latest version. That's the best testing you're going to get in terms of results. That's the one that most people are likely to be using, and we need to make sure our formulas are working with that latest version. The problem from a management perspective of maintaining this is that version will keep changing. Even like I said, every 4 months when there's a minor release that comes through, that version will change. And to continually update our matrices across all the formulas to change it to another version is actually a lot more work than I first envisaged, especially when you reach like 100 formulas. So using master, which will always remain as master, is a lot easier for the main bulk of the platforms. If they're all under master, then as changes take place to the salt repo and the commits that are added there, our formulas are being tested against that latest version of master, which will soon enough be released anyway. So we've already had this discussion, but I'm just reminding about this. Do you remember that part when we was discussing this, whether we should use master or the latest? Is that fairly clear? So using master reduces a lot of the complexity over time because it will always be master, so it won't have to be touched. That will always work, whatever happens with the whichever release we're on. And the other one I got stuck on, because we don't have a master for it at the moment, is Arch Linux. And there's stories there as well, because over the last 2 weeks, there's been issues with building Arch in Docker because they've updated something which no longer plays well with Docker. And there's a whole story there. I haven't got the link right now, but anyway, our latest testing, that's the only one that's got an actual version number, which is part of this so-called ideal matrix, which will always work. So that's the only one that's the exception, but otherwise it's always the master of every combination of platforms. So now you see a second thing here. In the past, we were normally only testing about six platforms per formula. And normally it would be the latest. So it'd normally be only Debian 10, Ubuntu 20 or 1804 if it was at the time. This was CentOS 8, only one of each one. Now, since moving to GitLab, and I've been, like I said before, very impressed with the way it just runs so rapidly across however many you throw at it. And also taking in the fact that in terms of maintainers from our organization, there's not many of us who can make time for maintaining all of it. My idea in this has been to enable as many unique platforms as possible for any given formula. So what you're doing here is the testing bed that's in place. As soon as a new PR is pushed through, is tested across everything that we've got, at least the master version of every platform, unique platform that we have in the system. And I feel like that's the way to kind of, at least we know that whatever we're merging, we don't have much time to maybe review everything, but at least it's passing through all of the platforms that it's historically worked with. Do you get the idea of where I'm coming from? Pass this over to GitLab instead of ourselves, having to ask, is this going to still work on all the platforms that it used to work on? Yeah. So I feel like using GitLab has freed us a bit, because Travis was only, 5 concurrent jobs at the same time across the whole organization. Whereas with GitLab, I'm finding it can be, so many across each formula at the same time. And I no longer feel that restriction. So I'm like, let's enable as many platforms as we can for each formula. And I think that's a good way to approach this, especially since we don't have many people to keep reviewing PRs. Now, what that's meant, what was I going to I'll go back to Zulu for a second. So what I did first, this is a few weeks back, was I kind of ran every formula against all the platforms across all the suites. So I just threw this into GitLab to go and run all of them and to show us what's going on. Let me take a search out and let's do changed. And these were the results across all the various formulas. So you can go into any particular formula. Let's take the Vault formula, for example. Nope, I've spelled that wrong. Let's just do Vault. That will work. And it's showing the results that were across, the various suites and each platform and which ones were passing and failing, and then using that to fix the matrix that we were using for the Vault formula and updating that to use every platform that it works for. So yeah, is that very clear enough? So if I go to the Vault formula, can't type. And we have a quick look at what the GitLab CI is now and what it was before. Get an idea. In fact, I don't even have to do this. I can just go to I can go to GitLab itself, hopefully, and we'll see it clearer there anyway. So go to the pipelines, except it's not on this side. That's why we won't see it yet. It hasn't been run yet. So this is the current one. A little bit tough to see on my screen. Can you see that well, or do I need to make it a bit bigger? Because there's a lot of like commented lines in between.
It's okay.
Yeah. Okay, and let's go to the previous one. So where the previous one that got migrated from Travis was only running, a few of the platforms, and it was only specific to one particular suite primarily. I mean, only one of them was running across all the suites. Here we have, only a small number. We was able to expand that to most of them running all of the suites instead. So all of these now are running all of the suites that are available. And only one, I think, down here was restricted, or were none of them restricted? No, none of them. All of them are running all the suites. So you're doing all the platforms across all the suites that have been defined, and that brings a much wider testing to that formula and gives a lot more confidence when looking at PRs that are sent through to those formulas. Fair enough? Clear enough as well? Any objections to that? Is there a problem that I might be introducing here?
No, I mean, it's only a question of resources, really. And as long as GitLab is, keeping up with those resources, then that's fine. Like we talked before, did you have to apply for anything with GitLab?
I haven't done anything yet. We should do that. I haven't done anything, but what I'm seeing with open source, anything that's open and available, there is no restrictions. But we'll find out.
Yeah,
but
so
GitLab's
policy. This is Felipe. I'm on the SRE team for SaltStack. So open source projects, as long as they are open in the upstream and forked into your personal namespace and remain public, it's unlimited CI on those jobs.
Thanks.
Support certain types, right? So they only support Docker, Windows, and Linux shell right now. I think they're expanding to Mac later. But so anything beyond that you have to bring, but it is unlimited on those types.
We did see over here that it said that it's 50,000 minutes for open source projects. So what's this referring to then? Is it when you have a close? I mean, what would it be that would limit you to these 50,000 minutes? Any idea?
Maybe they just added this. When was this added?
No, this has been a while. We saw this about 3 months back, and we've been meaning to send a request through to SaltStack to ask for us to apply to this program, because what it will also do, it will give us gold tier rather than what we're currently using.
Maybe that's for.
Oh, that's probably on the upstream repo. Yeah. So to clarify, the unlimited comes in the fork, not in the upstream. So the upstream does still incur minutes. And that's either the 2,000 free minutes that you get from the account, or it looks like they have a program here that you can apply. This is an actual upstream open source project, and then it looks like they'll extend some. So we should probably go ahead and fill that out.
That'd be brilliant. Yeah, if you
a dialogue with them and see where that goes.
Yeah, actually, we was going to ask. I did speak to Bryce about it before. I was supposed to get around to writing this down and pushing it through to you guys so you could just do this for us, because obviously it shouldn't be one of us. It should be from the company itself. But I think it's just this page here, and it just needs to be filled in.
Well, I think, yeah, I don't know. So as far as like gitlab.com/saltstack would definitely be us. I'm not sure about the SaltStack formulas subgroup. I mean, that is an entirely community-driven group, yes? Like, didn't we intend ownership to not be under SaltStack?
The GitLab side at the moment is still completely under SaltStack. So you see Thomas, he's the main owner of GitLab, GitHub salt stack formulas. And as far as I was aware, Bryce was saying similar thing would apply to GitLab. Is that correct, Bryce?
I think on GitLab for formulas, we're just additional owners. We're not, I think you're the primary owner. At least
Yeah, on the GitLab side, we're all equal owner level. I think a couple of us from the Salt Stack SRE side are in there just to help facilitate.
So should we fill this in ourselves?
So that's why I'm just raising a question. I'm not sure exactly what we being the community, now the VMware complicating factor and the Salt project group, what we had collectively intended the Salt formulas group to live as. Is that intended to be separate, or is that intended to be under us? If it is, then I'm glad to fill it out. You see what I'm saying? Like I just with VMware now being our boss, we have to be careful about certain things. So
based on what I've heard from Edelin, I think they prefer that you guys stay more separate, because otherwise we have to do a lot more paperwork. Whereas
Edelin is a representative from VMware open source stuff.
Yeah.
Do they know Edelin? Sorry, I don't know.
No, we haven't met. No, don't know anything.
Oh, okay. No. So she's a VMware representative that helps, our internal business units align on our and meet our legal obligations and et cetera on the open source side.
Speaking about this clarity about where SaltStack formulas fits in with SaltStack. In fact, there's been a few queries I've seen on Slack as well where people just aren't sure. And it's come up as a point. It's like, are you guys supposed, like someone was complaining about, they're a SaltStack enterprise customer and formulas, I've sent through PRs to formulas and no one's reviewing them. And why is this? And I'm going to complain to enterprise. And I'm like, well, we don't all know where we fit together. So it'd be really great to get some clarity on that. So even as a little group for ourselves, we know what we're doing going forward. Because at the moment, we're a bit unsure. Certain things come up and we're like, right, we'll have to ask someone in SaltStack. But there's no real, as in official contact, if you like. We know you guys, here and there, but we don't have an official contact that this is, yes, we're with SaltStack and this is what we're going to say from our side. So we get a bit stuck with certain things.
Yeah, I think we can, Bryce and I can probably bring that up and at least start that conversation and help hopefully make it come to a head so that we can get an answer there.
Yeah, definitely include Sage. She's probably the most in the loop from SaltStack side on what we're supposed to do.
For sure.
Yeah, I'll also echo on Sage there.
I was also going to say, I think those 50,000 minutes also applied to private projects for an open source project, because what if you have CVE releases where you need to run CI?
Right. So it might be on that side of things, perhaps. Private repos, basically.
That might well be the case. That might explain what's going on.
Yeah, because I've thrown quite a lot at it recently, a lot, and I don't seem to be hitting anything near. I mean, that 2,000 minutes, that's for individual users. I've gone way beyond that. I mean, I'm into the 10,000s easily. So yeah, it could be that, isn't it?
Well,
private repos.
I have hit that 2,000 privately, so that is taking place.
Yeah, for private repos. Yeah.
Can you scroll down on that? Is there a document linked there somewhere that has it?
There's the application. I'm not seeing a document really. I think there was one other link. Yep.
There was a terms and conditions link just a little bit above.
Have you also hit those? Have you hit those limits on both org level repos and personal namespace repos?
Who, myself? I've not hit any limits, but David was saying he'd hit some.
Okay.
David?
Yeah, privately, yes. On completely unrelated. I'm just saying it does exist and it does.
Yeah, so private definitely does. Yeah, it's open public repos. So if you fork from a public open source repo into your namespace and it remains public, then those runs are free. They want to foster open source development.
Yeah.
So upstream namespaces, subgroups, right? Like /saltstack/saltstack formulas, regardless of whether it's public, those minutes count. And of course, private.
Do you have any idea where I can see that? Like normally on my own account, I can see that in the settings somewhere. So if I'm just trying to jump here to let's see, this is my own one. salt stack form. Oops, that was what I wanted. Right. So do you have any idea where it shows up here? I mean, I guess it's billing. It should be there.
Usage quotas and billing.
There's
So
billing.
Billing will show you what your billing is. I'll show you. It's
Okay,
right
was
there.
there all right, usage quotas? I didn't see that. Yep. I mean, it shows up. You see, we're supposed to have 400 minutes and
Doesn't
it's showing
look
up
like
as
you've
0.
used any. Has anything
So-
actually ran in the upstream?
Oh yeah, for sure.
In those specific repos,
Let me try and dig out some that I mean, I
VS
can't even-
Code, Kubernetes, yeah.
these were the most recent ones. Some of the more recent ones, I should say. Oh, actually, you know what it is? These are the ones that were forked in automatically by the bot I was just talking about. So these are actually private at the moment, and they're the only ones that are showing up. You see, these are actually private repos at the moment. They were created automatically without anyone's involvement. So they came up as private, and they're the only ones that are showing up with minutes. So I think everything else, because it's not a private repo, isn't showing up on this screen. Once I change that to, as soon as I change this to non-private, it won't show up there anymore. Where's privacy? Expand. Let's make that public, and it won't show up anymore. Anything else? Save changes. There, it's gone. So it's just a matter of private repos that are showing up down here under the minutes.
It doesn't seem to be consistent for what we're seeing in our salt stack group. We have, other things that are showing up that are open source. So,
Do you have any private repos though?
let me see. I mean, well, we got plenty of private repos, but it looks like we do have public repos that are showing up. So
Okay.
I don't know. Well, it's probably best to go through the docs and get some clarifications. GitLab changes a little, way faster than Salt does these days, as you mentioned, the speed of things. So it's what was true, a few months ago when I was actually looking at GitLab services and not involved in more. I've been, largely on the enterprise side of Salt Stack and internal VMware things. So things change quickly, and it's possible that they've changed things in the last little bit. So we should probably go through the docs there and get a definite answer on what is and isn't counted there, and maybe actually do some testing. Here's a public repo, I ran a job. Here's a private repo, I ran a job. See what happens.
Yeah.
So anyways, let's we probably should leave it for that, because it doesn't look like there's some inconsistencies in what we're seeing between the two groups, and I probably can't give you a definite answer.
Right. Okay. Yeah. If we can just get some of that clarity about whether we can apply ourselves to that program or not, that will help. Because just having that 50,000 minutes is, if we can find that out, that would be really helpful for us.
We'll start a conversation with hopefully the right people.
Because there's another one as well, because we want to apply for something else. It's Algolia for search, because we've got some documentation ideas, and that also requires applying as an open source project. So whatever you guys can find out, if it applies for all things we do, then we can just go ahead and do these things rather than coming back to you to try and figure out whether we can do them or not.
And Imran, I would actually be very interested in how that Algolia stuff goes, because that's kind of on the long-term roadmap, what I wanted to look into for the Salt Stack documentation.
Yeah.
Well, for the Salt project documentation, and in general, all of the POP projects, because we're also spread across so many different.
Yeah, you might remember I mentioned this in the documentation group near the beginning. I've played around with this, and I've worked with some of the ASCII Doctor people before, and they're really, really good. I know you guys aren't going to switch to that now, so that's not important, but they've got Algolia, they've got it integrated with their stuff. So as soon as you set this up, we can get it. But to get the full access to the whole of what Algolia offers, you need to get the I think you've got so little without applying. I can't remember what it was at the moment. I'm just trying to remember the
Yeah, I remember seeing an open source
the open source, the open source page. Yeah. I'll go for open source, that's the one. And where's the actual, it shows you the amounts, but it's massive. If you can get onto what they've got, then it's.
Yeah, I remember seeing like the amount of searches they allow is ridiculously high. It's really looks really nice. Do you, and so you're looking at Antora, which is an ASCII doc specific static site generator tooling, or okay.
Yeah. And what it does, it pulls from all your repos. So you just pulls it all into one documentation tree and builds it all up for you. It's lovely. The way it works is really, really good. It's going to take a bit of time, but I've already played around with it. It's really nice. So that's what we're looking at. But we want to get that Algolia open source application done. And that's, again, going to need some answers from upstream first to find out whether we can do it or not.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So where was I? Somewhere over here. So I was saying that the difference was, and we're just not sure about whether we can, do this successfully across all formulas without incurring some sort of problems in the long term. I think switching off certain amounts of platforms is easier than actually switching them back on. So I'd rather have as many platforms tested as possible, because that's the benefit we need as an organization. And then if we do start hitting limits, just switching these off so that we don't run, say, the extras, if you like. We'll only run on the latest and we'll leave the extras and we'll comment those ones out. That's easy enough to do using, what I've been using, the SSF formula and stuff to do that. So that's fair enough as an, we're good with that as that method. I've lost you guys. Are you guys there?
Sorry. What I was going to say just on Vault formula there is that those other test suites are not really useful running on the whole gamut of platforms. I know what you're saying. I'm just saying I almost curated them because the tests themselves wouldn't really gain anything from running on multiple platforms. But still, running them doesn't cause a problem.
Yeah, that's what I think I'm thinking now. Whereas before we had to watch every minute of all of our Travis CI runs because they were holding up other Travis CI runs. That was when I was concerned about these things. But now that we've got, or it seems like we've got this freedom to basically use as much of the test as much as possible, then it's basically, test all the things, just put it all out there. And at least it's testing all the states in the formula. Because I suppose some of these suites have different states that are being run underneath. Is that right? Or
yes, they do, but just the nature of them, there'd be no difference between running them on different platforms. It's just I'm just kind of nitpicking here.
Yeah, I understand what you're bringing. My side is as more as we can test, the less burden on manual.
I don't know if you remember. Actually, when I first started this testing on Vault formula, they were run on all the suites were run on every platform. So then we went back the other way because we wanted to limit a bit of what was running and that kind of thing. But if we've got that freedom, we'll use it. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So what that's meant now from my side to make this a bit easier for the longer term is, I know the SSF is a bit out of reach for most. It's like a bit too meta, for a lot of people, but I've started using wildcards in there now. So what we can do, instead of having, I'm trying to think of a good example. Let's take the Vault. I think that was a good example. Except I've already done it, so you'll see it now. Effectively, for the OS version, SALT version, and the Python version, before we were kind of, how can I put it? We were listing every single version in there. And now I'm using a 0 to stand like for a wildcard instead. So this is being generated, what we were just talking about above here, the Vault, this one over here. The selected platforms to be run, which is all of this here, the green, is coming from a wildcard approach instead. So where there's a 0, that means all of the Debians that are available and all of the Python versions here, for example. Whereas over here for Fedora, for some reason, 33 is not working. So we're just going to do 32 specifically. So we're just listing out the widest possible range of platforms that we're going to test within the ideal matrix, though, because the ideal matrix is over here. which is every single platform and using all the versions that are available, one of each. And then for each one, the master where it's available, which is actually all of them, except for Arch, which is the latest one we have there. So what we're doing, we're throwing the net out there to try and capture as many testing edge cases as possible.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to quickly do one. I don't know if we've got time now, though. It's not going to take very long. Should I quickly squeeze one in? Just squeeze one in. So the next one I was on, I believe. So I worked through them from the most. I've only got about 40 left now. Done more than about 60% of them. But I've been working for the rest of them, working from the top down in terms of how long they've been around and usually how big they are. So I'm down to the apt cache. And I've done that one. Done Vault, done packages. Django's been done. Wait, all of these have been done. Where did I get up to? Oh yeah, I did get up to here, but I finished because I've already done these earlier because these are some of the more used formulas. I'm just trying to get down here to one I haven't done. System D, has that been done? Done. Time zone's been done. Golang. Right, that's the one that hasn't been done. So let's try and set this up. So this is my pillar that I'm using for this. Where am I? Up here. I was trying Java, but there's a few little issues there because of the way there's overlaps of platforms. So I'm gonna have to look at that one again. Right, so it's just these files over here that are going to be adjusted for that formula when we're upgrading the matrix. So we're going to do Golang over here. So what I'll do first, I'll look at it in terms of that run I did a while back to see what actually worked. Spelled it wrong. What worked, what didn't work, and I won't read that all like that because it's a bit difficult to follow. So I'll come down over here and let's close this because this is not the one I want. I want Golang. And over here, I've got a little macro, which just pastes it in and just sorts it the way that I can see it easier, what's actually happened. So is that big enough font? Do you need it slightly bigger or is that good?
It's okay for me.
Okay, so what we can see here, Gentoo hasn't been configured for the formula, which is fine. And for some reason, CentOS 7 is failing. So we'll have a quick look at that just to see if there's anything that's easy to fix. If it's very easy to fix, I'll do it. If it's not, I won't worry about it. So now we have to find it. Here it is, over here. I do like the way Zulip just lists it all out nicely for you. It's all in one place. It becomes a lot easier to work with. This is just failing over loads of things, so I'm not going to really look at this one. I'll have a quick look, see if it's an easy fix at the top, but if it's not, all right, it's having a problem with archive extracted. And I've seen a few recently having this actually, but I have no idea what this is. So I'm not going to try and fix it right now. I'll leave that for whoever maintains that formula usually. Have you ever come across this? I've had some problems with archive extracted recently, just having character issues, encoding issues. I'm not sure what that's about. Anyway, I'm not going to do this suite. I'm not going to do this particular combination of suite and platform. That's not going to work anytime soon. So taking that information there, let's grab the new platform that we're going to use over here, starting from the base. And we're going to replace this in a minute down here. And we want, so we're saying everything except for Gentoo and CentOS 7 default. So CentOS 7 package is working over here. So we want to keep CentOS 7, but just the package and not the default. So Debian's good, Ubuntu's good. This one over here, I'm just going to borrow and make, so 8 is good for, oh, and we want everything. Sorry, that's another thing. There's two suites here, default and package, and we want both of them. And at the moment, we're only using them individually. So I need to set up a different value here, which means use both suites, as in use all the suites that are defined. And I'll just have to change this over here as well. Don't worry about this. This part here is not that important, as in to explain. So Golang, right? And we paste this down here. So we're saying there's another suite that we're going to run, which is everything. So down here instead, we can change all of these to use that by default instead of the actual default suite. So what I want to do here for 1 minute is, let me just delete those 2 lines again. And let me change all of these to, right, so that's now using all the suites that are available there. So let's start again now. So it's working for everything here, except that CentOS 8 should be both suites, and CentOS 7 should only be default. Clear so far? Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So otherwise, just disable Gentoo and that's it, we're good to go. So we disable that and we can get rid of this now because this is the old setup. So that's the setup we want to test out and see whether it's going to work. So I run one more test on that. My pillar set up correctly is going to push to my fork Golang formula. The file's already set up. I didn't mean to change that. Let's just run this. SSF, let's open up the, let's see what it actually does, make sure it's doing the right thing. F5, oops, wrong button. So you see here what it's, well, you might not see it, but it started from the upstream that was already available, made a new branch, and it pushed this branch through over here. This is the commit, and that's Zuloop's noise in the back, if you heard that. That's actually saying what's actually taken place, that it's started a pipeline. So it's pushed through basically what we just said as the new suites, and it's upgraded the inspec files as well to make sure that it's testing across all the platforms, because before we weren't using these are more recent platforms. If we go over here to Zuloop now over this side, we'll see at the bottom, the pipeline's been created. Just going to make sure this all passes, because it should do, because our last run did do all of these. And just when I spoke all those good things about GitLab saying how fast it is, it decides to pause on me. Maybe they're watching this and thinking, right, Imran's been using it too much. Let's stop him. But that's it. And that's going to be tested now. And as long as those all pass, just push those upstream. And we've got this as the new matrix now for, let's look at those jobs, make sure it's the right ones. So you see for everything, it's both suites in all cases, but CentOS 7 is only the default suite. We've done that wrong. It wasn't the default suite, it was the package suite. My mistake. Up here, the default suite actually failed. I wanted the package suite, which is the one that passed. So I need to just quickly change that. Cancel running.
All right, it looks like we're just coming up on time here for the working group.
Which working group is that? Oh, our one.
Oh,
Yeah.
for this one.
Yeah, sorry, I was thinking another one was starting.
Oh, no,
Okay,
no.
well, okay, I'll do it afterwards. All right, then that's great. Thank you very much. And we'll catch up in a couple of weeks' time then.
Thank you for
Okay.
running this. This is a
Thank
lot
you.
of awesome work.
Not
Thank
a
you.
problem.